celebrating the legacies of the first African Anglican Bishop, Bishop of Western Equatorial Africa, later called the Niger Territories, Samuel Ajayi Crowther, who rose from chains to courage. He held the word like sword and flame. So hold your faith through storm and shame. Let his triumph remind you, strength is born in struggle, and your light matters most when the world feels dim. Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther was born in 1809 in the town of Osogun, which is located in present-day Oyo State, Nigeria, then part of the Yoruba kingdoms, and consecrated as a bishop on June 29, 1864. Samuel Ajayi Crowther's name changed through a process tied to his capture, emancipation, and Christian conversion. His original name at birth in 1809 was simply Ajayi, a Yoruba name. At about 12 years old in 1821, he was captured during a Fulani slave raid on his village in Osogun. He was sold into the transatlantic slave trade and put on a Portuguese slave ship. Rescued by the British Royal Navy, which was enforcing the abolition of the slave trade, as at that time, Ajayi and other captives were freed and taken to Freetown, Sierra Leone, a safe colony for the freed slaves. In Sierra Leone, Ajayi came under the care of Church Missionary Society, CMS, where he was educated and taught Christianity. And on December 11, 1825, at age 16, he was baptized into the Anglican Church. At baptism, he was given the name Samuel. He took the surname Crowther in honor of Reverend Samuel Crowther, a CMS clergy and teacher who greatly influenced his early education and faith before he returned as a missionary and linguist. Some of his notable achievements includes being the first African Anglican bishop in Nigeria and, in fact, in all of Africa. He was very instrumental to the translation of the Bible into Yoruba. He also helped in developing written forms of several African languages, thus promoted African leadership in the church at a time when most missionaries were European. Marriage and family of Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther.
A man of the word, a husband of one wife, and a father of faith.
Samuel Ajayi Crowther married Asano, a fellow Yoruba woman and freed slave like himself in Sierra Leone. After her baptism, she was renamed Susan Crowther. Their union was more than romantic. It was a spiritual covenant formed through shared pain, shared freedom, and shared mission. Susan was not just his wife. She was his companion in ministry, mother of his children, and keeper of his peace. About Susan Crowther. Susan was educated by missionaries in Sierra Leone before her marriage. She supported Crowther through all stages of his journey, from teacher to missionary to bishop. She endured long separations during his missionary journeys, often with little comfort. She raised their children with discipline, prayer, and purpose. She was a quiet strength behind his public calling. Their children, carriers of the torch. Samuel and Susan Crowther had several children, though historical records name only a few specifically. Among them, 1. Dandison Coates Crowther, most prominent son, named after Henry Dandison Coates, a CMS official who influenced Crowther's life. He became an Anglican priest, educated at Fora Bay College, and later ordained in England. Dandison stood beside his father during much of the missionary work in Nigeria. After Crowther's death, he tried to continue the mission, but was also undermined and pushed aside by white missionaries. He was not appointed bishop, even though qualified, because he was African. 2. Other children and grandchildren. Some records suggest Crowther had multiple children, but not all are documented publicly. His descendants today still live in parts of Nigeria and the UK, and some are involved in education and ministry. Family challenges and pain. The Crowther family faced prejudice, isolation, and systemic opposition. Dandison and other African clergy were denied positions of authority by the same CMS that raised them. The entire Crowther family carried the burden of betrayal by the church. His family bore the wounds of spiritual injustice, yet their legacy never died. Samuel Crowther was a faithful husband and a loving father. His marriage was built on faith, forgiveness, and shared destiny. His children tried to carry the light but were resisted by racial and colonial walls. Today, his family name remains a symbol of African resilience, dignity, and divine purpose. He gave the word to his people. He gave love to his wife. He gave a name to his children. He gave all to God. First bishop in Africa. While Crowther was the first African bishop in Anglican Christianity, there were bishops in Africa long before Christianity spread to West Africa. In early Christian history, Africa had bishops as far back as the 2nd and 3rd centuries. Saint Mark, 1st century AD, is traditionally considered the first bishop of Alexandria, Egypt. Saint Cyprian was bishop of Carthage, modern Tunisia, in the 3rd century. Saint Augustine of Hippo, in present-day Algeria, was one of the greatest church fathers in the 4th century. It is worthy to mention that while in captivity, he prayed a vow, if God would deliver me from slavery, I would spend my life in his service. This became the foundation of his lifelong mission after being rescued. Crowther was not just a preacher, he was a gifted linguist. He translated the Bible into Yoruba, wrote a Yoruba grammar book, and worked on Hausa, Igbo, and Nupe. Hidden truths and painful secrets about Samuel Ajayi Crowther's life. He was appointed, but never fully accepted. Crowther was the first African Anglican bishop, consecrated in 1864, a historic moment for Africa and global Christianity. But behind the titles and robes, he was never fully accepted by many white CMS missionaries. They saw him more as a symbol than a leader, tolerated but not trusted. He was a deeply spiritual man, not just a scholar. People often praise Crowther for being a linguist, translator, and educator, but few know he was also a committed man of prayer, holiness, and humility. He evangelized inland tribes, endured travel by canoe and foot through swamps and dangerous territories, not for glory, but for souls. He faced deep racism from within the church. European missionaries and administrators began to believe that Africans could not manage church work independently. Despite Crowther's success, they felt white leadership was still needed to oversee African Christians. His own staff and African pastors were humiliated, demoted, or replaced with white missionaries. His authority was systematically undermined. New white missionaries were sent from England and openly disrespected him, bypassing his authority and even reorganizing the missions he founded. Some refused to work under him, and Crowther was powerless to stop them. 5. He was treated like a subordinate in his own diocese. Though a bishop, Crowther was excluded from key decisions. His letters and reports were often ignored or rejected. Mission policies were changed without consulting him. His entire missionary structure was slowly stripped from his hands. 6. He resigned before he died, heartbroken. In 1891, Crowther quietly resigned some leadership roles, seeing the handwriting on the wall. He died later that year, heartbroken, betrayed, and silenced, not by pagans, but by the church system he served for over 50 years. 7. There was no apology until 125 years later. The Church of England and the CMS never apologized in his lifetime. Only in 2019, during a 150-year commemoration of his consecration, did Archbishop Justin Welby acknowledge the offense. We in the Church of England need to repent of the wrongs done to Bishop Crowther and his legacy. What was the offense? The offense was more than disrespect. It was systemic racism, cultural arrogance, spiritual betrayal, a denial of African capability, dignity, and leadership. They silenced the voice of the very man God raised to awaken Africa. The chains of slavery couldn't stop him, but the chains within the church broke his heart. Despite all these, today, Crowther's Bible translations remain foundational. His story inspires missionaries, students, not just African Christians, but a global audience. His life proves, even if man forgets, heaven never does. His death and burial. Samuel Ajayi Crowther, the first African Anglican bishop in West Africa, died of a stroke on 31 December 1891 in Lagos State, Nigeria. He was originally buried at Ajele Cemetery near Campos in Lagos Island. His wife, Asana, also known as Susan, and one of his sons were laid to rest beside him. Interestingly, in 1970s, the Lagos state government under Brigadier General Mobolaji Johnson repurposed the site of Ajele Cemetery for government offices, which led to the cemetery being demolished. That means Crowther's original burial site no longer exists in its original form. Crowther's remains were exhumed and reinterred in 1976, and a cenotaph honoring him was erected at the Cathedral Church of Christ in Lagos. His legacy, however, remains deeply rooted in Nigerian history, the Anglican Church, and Christianity in Africa. We honor the life of our first African Anglican bishop, who rose from the chains of slavery to the bishop's throne. Samuel Ajayi Crowther. His life is not just a story of survival. It is a legacy of purpose, resilience, and divine assignment. I am a privileged minister of God who also benefited from the works of Papa Samuel Ajayi Crowther because I was baptized and confirmed within the Anglican Diocese of Lagos, Nigeria. Papa Samuel Ajayi Crowther translated the Bible into the Yoruba language, opening the scriptures to millions in their own tongue, of which I am one of them, decades after he is long gone. He championed education, dignity, and faith in a time when the African voice was suppressed. He reminded the world that Black lives not only matter, they carry divine purpose. Crowther's story is a mirror of Africans' pain, its power, and its promise. His footprints stretched beyond Nigeria to the shores of Sierra Leone, England, and beyond, making him a global blessing to the world. Today, his life challenges us to rise above limitations, reclaim our voice, and live for a purpose bigger than ourselves. Ajayi Crowther did not just change history. He became a light to generations. And though he now rests, his voice still speaks. Africa can rise because Crowther stood. Currently, the Anglican University is named in his honor in Oyo State of Nigeria as Ajayi Crowther University.